Have you ever heard of global warming? Chances are, if you pay attention to the news or politics, you have. Things like global warming and climate change are common topics in modern society. But why? Well, this can be attributed to the rising CO2 levels. CO2, commonly known as carbon dioxide, is a byproduct of burning fossil fuels, driving cars, and other human activities. The true issue here is that humans are adding a surplus of CO2 into the environment. This surplus amount of CO2 is getting trapped in the atmosphere as greenhouse gases, which trap heat and warm the Earth. The US alone accounted for 80% of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere. Things that remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, such as plants, are not able to keep up with the amount being released, thus toppling the carbon cycle. The Earth has warmed by 0.14 degrees Fahrenheit every decade since 1880. A clear sign of global warming due to this carbon dioxide imbalance. This increase started just after the Industrial Revolution, when carbon-releasing activities skyrocketed. This can all be traced back to factories, cars, and other things that release CO2. Humans are constantly performing these activities so they could get from place to place, have energy, produce cement, and burn wood. There are even natural things that release carbon dioxide, such as decomposition, which is natural, unlike mankind's carbon emissions. You might be thinking that this isn't so bad. That's a small temperature difference, so why should we worry or try to fix it? To put it simply, the release of CO2 could lead to global warming and climate change through the greenhouse effect. This is when gases in the atmosphere trap heat that warms Earth's surface. This causes tides to rise, glaciers to melt, and an increase in natural disasters. One of the more prevalent disasters in recent years is wildfires. Wildfires are becoming more and more common because of the rise in CO2. That small temperature difference is actually enough to cause megafires, like the ones in California and Australia. Not only does the rise in CO2 cause these wildfires, but the wildfires affect the level of CO2. Wildfires put out roughly 2 to 4 million tons of carbon into the atmosphere each year. That's double the amount put out by burning fossil fuels.
Carbon is not just affecting the air, though. It can hurt the ocean, too. The rising temperatures caused by CO2 can harm marine ecosystems and biodiversity within them. For instance, coral reefs are rampant with biodiversity, from the coral polyps to the reef sharks. If the globe continues to warm from carbon, though, these reefs are threatened. The hotter the atmosphere gets, the hotter the ocean gets. If it reaches high enough temperatures, algae doesn't bond with coral, therefore depriving it of nutrients. This causes them to die in a process known as coral bleaching. This harms the coral, the organisms that live in or on it, the organisms that eat those organisms, the organisms that eat those organisms, and so on. Coral bleaching caused by CO2 can ruin entire ecosystems and destroy marine biodiversity. So how do we prevent this? By using renewable energy in place of fossil fuels. There are many alternatives to fossil fuels. For example, solar energy using solar panels, wind energy using windmills, or hydro energy using hydroelectric dams. There are even alternatives to gas-powered cars, i.e. electric or hybrid vehicles. If we adopt these sources of energy for a majority of where we get our electricity, power, etc., the use of fossil fuels will significantly go down, thus decreasing the amount of carbon being put into the atmosphere. Planting more trees, forests, and other plants is another solution to this problem. Plants go through photosynthesis, which extracts carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. If we work to plant more forests and vegetation, the carbon dioxide levels would decrease and restore balance in the carbon cycle. Furthermore, it would provide more shelter and resources for wildlife, increasing biodiversity and solving a variety of other problems, such as deforestation and air pollution.